In this video, I'm going to show you a solution Joel McCune came up with for sorting street names using Python. We found Joel's blog post at the URL shown here, and Joel agreed to let us create this video based on it. First, let's take a look at the problem. Here we have a list of streets, and you can see in this list we have North Davidson Street, we have South Davidson Street with just an S dot for the prefix for South, East Davidson Street, and then just Davidson Street. So we'd like all of those to stay together when we sort, but of course they won't because Python doesn't know that those are special prefixes. So it sorts Anaconda Street first, then Davidson Street, then East Davidson Street, and then Narramore Street, then North Davidson Street, Quincy Ave, South Davidson Street. So those Davidson Streets aren't together. So how do we solve this problem? Let's take a look at Joel's solution. The first thing he does is he imports the regular expression module, and then he imports item getter from the operator module. And then he creates his function, sort streets. And it just takes our street lists, and below that he creates a regular expression. And this regular expression creates two named groups. The first one is named prefix, and that's just a list of possible prefixes. And the second one is named street, and that's just all of the content after the prefix. So he has these two named groups. And what he's going to do is pass each of the streets through this regular expression checker using search, and then have access to each of these groups. So he's ignoring case when he's doing this with the ignore case flag. So we can get north all lowercase or north all uppercase if that's how it's been written. And then he loops through them for street and street lists. First thing he does is just strip white space just in case. And then he creates a street match variable. And then he uses the search method of his regex object and passes in the street. So then having that result, he'll then look for a prefix. Did the match find a prefix? So we've created a default value here for street prefix so that we can reference it without error later on. We then check to see if there is a group named prefix, and if there is, we set the street prefix to that value. We then have street root to the rest of the pattern, the street name. So we have two variables, street prefix holding the prefix and street root holding the rest of the name. And then we append a tuple to our street sort list. This is our new list that we're creating. And the tuple will have three values, street prefix, street root, and then the whole street. Once we've looped through and created all those tuples and created our new street sort list, we're going to sort it on the second element and then on the first element. So the second element, remember, holds the street root, and the first element holds the prefix. So it's going to be sorted first on the root and then on the prefix. And then we use a list comprehension to return the whole result as a list. But we don't want to return all the prefixes and street roots. We just want to return the full streets, and that's why we added those. That's why we added the street to the tuple when we appended it to street sort list. So we return the third element. We could have used -1 here too, the last element of our street tuple for each street tuple in our sort list. So let's run this function and then call it, passing in our streets. And you can see it works well. We have Anaconda Street, Davidson Street, and then we have East Davidson, North Davidson, and South Davidson Street all grouped together. And then we go on to Narramore, Quincy, and Zachary. So that works great, except there's one issue. What if we have a street named North Street? So the street itself is named North Street, but our program, our function, is going to look at that north and think that that's a prefix for the street name, not the street root. So we'll create that list. We'll go down, call the function again, and you can see North Street comes after Quincy Ave, right? Because it is only looking at street there for the sort purposes. It thinks that the street root is street and the prefix is north, where in reality there is no prefix. The street root is just North Street. And so North Street gets sorted in the wrong order. So we've modified this solution a little bit. Let's take a look at what we did. We still use a regular expression, but we're just getting the prefix. So north, south, east, west, and the abbreviated versions of those as well. Again, we ignore case, and we make sure that we're starting and ending with this, and that's what the caret and the dollar sign do for the regular expression. We then have our street sort list, just like Joel did, and we loop through the street list. We split on the space to get our different parts, and then we're only going to look at the first part to see if our prefix matches that. So we say if prefix.match street part 0, and the length of street parts is greater than 2. And so what we're doing here is trying to avoid catching North Street or South Street or East Ave, those kinds of things. If it's longer than 2, it means we have East something street. There's a something in there, and that's what we're looking for. So if it is, we append streetparts.pop0. So let's take a look at what's going on there. Streetparts.append streetparts.pop0. So the streetparts.pop0 will take off the first item of the list. It'll remove it and return it. So that gets rid of the prefix. We then append that prefix to the end of street parts. So now where we had North Davidson Street, we have Davidson Street North, or Davidson, comma, Street, comma, North, because it's a list. Right? So we're just taking our prefix and we're putting it at the end. We then append that list, Davidson, comma, Street, comma, North, to our street sort list. Once we've done all this, all those street names converted to lists with the prefix at the end of them are sorted. So that will sort on the roots first and then on the prefixes at the end. We then go back and loop through this again, and we check again to see if the last element now is a prefix, if it matches our prefix regular expression, and if street parts has a length greater than 2. And if it does, we insert into the first position the last position. So streetparts.pop, if we don't pass it a value, it pops off the last element in the list. And we're going to take that, which is the prefix, and put it back in the front. So that's what that streetparts.insert0, comma, streetparts.pop does. And then whether or not we had to do that, we join the list back into a string separated by spaces, and we append it to our sorted streets, and we return sorted streets. So let's run this function and then call it. And you can see we still have our Davidson streets all together, east, north, and south coming after Davidson Street. And then we have North Street where it's supposed to be between Narramore and Quincy. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks to Joel for letting us use his post as a basis for this video. Check out his blog at the URL shown here.